reacted to tons of Godzilla evolutions on this channel, from body parts all the way to full figures of Godzilla. But today's, I don't think we've ever seen one like it. It's the Godzilla evolution, but it's explained. So maybe like explaining the powers of the evolution, or I don't really know. It's by Goji Center, so let's get into it. Let's see what he's got for us.
Witnessed Godzilla's latest evolutionary stage.
Fire, by the way. Let me know what you thought of the new Godzilla.
Able to grow past this? Will he devolve?
Grow past
it? His blue state? And most importantly, can he get even more powerful?
I don't think he'll devolve.
Today on Goji
I don't think we've ever seen
we'll
that.
Delve into the evolution of the king of the monsters.
I mean, he'll devolve from evolve to normal.
Why he had to shift to the next stage of evolution,
but not below normal.
Forth the strongest Titanis Gojira of all time. Subscribe to not miss any more episodes.
If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button for me, big fella. Appreciate you. Let's go.
Explained.
I love Godzilla. Let's get into it.
In this episode, we'll cover all of Godzilla's different forms, beginning when we saw him in live action in Apple TV's Monarch Legacy of Monsters.
So we're starting in Monarch.
Here, we are taken back in time, prior to the events that happened in 2014. Back to the year 1954 in Bikini Atoll during the Castle Bravo nuclear tests. These so-called tests were actually a way to lure Godzilla into a trap.
Kind of good.
What was supposed to be the end of the last surviving Gojira specimen
actually really good.
would actually mark the beginning of Godzilla's outstanding evolutionary journey.
Yeah, you're just hyping my boy up.
Seems very lean, almost young, and nowhere near as bulky as his later appearances.
A young G,
Additionally, we see that his
1954.
dorsal plates are straighter, pointy, and jagged in appearance. It's unclear how tall he was during this time period, but he was likely around the 354-foot range.
It looks so
similar
sick,
to
man.
his height in
I love the
2014.
details.
Before we move ahead to this era, we must first ask the question, was Godzilla always this skinny prior to this moment? Was he always this lean in appearance in the millions of years he's been roaming the planet?
He's sort of lean, but it's not crazy, you know?
If there's something we do know about the G-Man, is that he's been around not only for a very long time,
He's been around for a
many
minute.
global crises and Titan wars. That's right, a Godzilla like this would have probably not
well,
fared
he
too
is
well
kind of thin,
against
isn't
other
he?
Titans like Ghidorah.
You can tell just
or
by the
a whole
head.
Army of great apes. Evidence to support the theory that Godzilla was likely a bit bulkier is the depictions of ancient cave paintings showing Godzilla
I remember
himself
these.
going up against other kaijus like a great ape.
Isn't there a
and
new season of
Ghidorah.
Monarch
Note
gonna be
how
coming out
in these
sometime?
depictions, Godzilla isn't the skinny lizard we see in 1954. He's a bit more nourished, to say the least.
He's a big
So
boy.
what
He be eating
happened?
good.
Just like a bodybuilder who takes a year off from working out, or a bear who wakes up after hibernation, there are definitely
You
some
lose a lot of
consequences
muscle, lose a lot of
being
weight.
inactive for a long time. These repercussions come in the form of lost body mass. Maybe he wasn't as tall back then, but likely more bulky. But not enough to take on a certain member of the great ape species.
Yeah, he's gotta be bulky,
if you
bro,
didn't know,
to
there's
fight,
actually a
you know, the
record
big
of a hard
fellas.
L handed to Godzilla by this fella. Known as the Rival, this dude was actually strong
Rival?
enough to kick Godzilla out of his house, suggesting that at this point in time, the G-Man wasn't 2024 big, but probably similar to something like 2014. It's no wonder that Godzilla, during the Great Titan War, resorted to using geological means to deal with these apes. In GXK, we learned that instead of taking on Scar King and his army of apes in hand-to-hand combat, he instead simply trapped them in a giant cave, leaving them at the mercy of Shimo.
I mean,
This ended up backfiring.
it's a
but the
valid
point is
plan,
that Godzilla
I
was
think.
nowhere near as big and strong as he was during the years 2015 and beyond. But after these events and a long nap, Godzilla probably woke up around 1954 a lot skinnier. This nuke would only end up helping Godzilla get stronger, bringing us to the year 2014. At this point, after
That's a long
60
time.
years, Godzilla
60
would have gained
years?
a little more mass, but barely any height. His spines, which are a key indicator of his maturity, were still more or less the same as his form in 1954. The real change between this form and the previous was the amount of mass he carried around. How is it possible that this
So
Titan was
he's
able to
not
bulk
getting
up?
mass from like
Radiation.
okay.
At
Well, I
this
was gonna
point,
say
it's really
radiation, but
important to note that radiation
because
is
Evolved Godzilla was
everything
kind of
for
skinny.
Gojiras, with
so
the
it
lack
didn't
of
really make
only
sense to
spelling
me.
death to those
He was
unfortunate
skinnier.
to be
I
deprived
don't know.
from
We'll
it.
see.
As was the case with Dagon, another Gojira specimen with similar proportions to Godzilla in 2014, but lost a fight against the Muto Prime and served as an incubator for the two Mutos seen in 2014.
Serving as
Godzilla
an
would now
incubator
have
is
the acquired
crazy.
mass necessary to avenge his relative thanks to the atomic bomb. This was a brave new world Godzilla was living in now. Radiation was now easier to acquire and recharging times were exponentially less than before. Instead of taking a nap that could last years next to a radioactive source, Godzilla would just rely on staying near or consuming
That was such a
the
good
energy
scene.
from any nuclear source. Here, Godzilla was able to take on two Mutos and tank a great amount of damage before defeating them.
Fire.
But at what point would Godzilla end up switching up to the form we see him in King of the Monsters? Well, shortly after the events of 2014, or known as G-Day, Godzilla ended up having a confrontation with the Muto Prime, aka the parent of these two Mutos. After a few skirmishes, their last confrontation ended up costing the G-Man his dorsal plates, shattered by the Muto's sonic roar.
See, I need to be reading the comics and stuff. I don't know if you guys ever do that, but
they returned looking different.
I need to give me the
Godzilla had
comics.
leveled up to the next stage in his evolution.
I'm slacking.
That's right, the next evolutionary stage featured a new shape for his dorsal plates. This shape, though, was not exclusive to this Godzilla. This shape marked the next stage in Gojira evolution.
Tough.
We know this because there was another Gojira that also reached these stages. One killed by the great apes and whose dorsal plates were used to create the axes in Kong's throne room. This is our indicator that there were in fact more Gojiras that reached this evolutionary stage back in the day, and Godzilla had just entered this stage.
Supercharged or evolve? Obviously, no, evolve is better, but like, I think supercharged looks sick.
Godzilla was able to grow his plates
with all the
back to this
blue
new
lines.
form. But not only that, begin another growth spurt. We'll see how tall Godzilla ended up growing up in 2019, but first we must note that at this rate, Godzilla was already beginning to regain mass again. His more muscular arms capable of quickly dispatching titans such as the Ion Dragon, and even though becoming heavier, the G-Man was now able to move faster. His attack maneuvers covering more area.
He is quick there, isn't he?
Preparing him for what is to come in 2019. At this point in time, Monarch had finally caught up a little bit with the realization that there were a lot more Titans around the world laying dormant, and that Godzilla and Kong weren't the only ones around. One in particular, known as Monster Zero, was the one to look out for. The big man himself. Fortunately, at this point, Godzilla had reached the peak of his next growth spurt, reaching 393 feet in height and gaining more body mass.
We're getting a little supercharged here. Not all the way.
Like Ghidorah.
I like it when they're just all the way throughout his body.
Had unlocked a new
Sick.
evolutionary boundary and was now taller.
Obviously,
In
Thermo
Godzilla
too.
King
Thermo's
of the
really
Monsters,
beautiful.
During a battle in the coast off Isla de Mara, Godzilla
It looks so
and
dangerous.
Ghidorah were both caught up by a new man-made weapon known as the Oxygen Destroyer, which ended up greatly weakening Godzilla, almost killing him. Weakened and wounded, Godzilla retreated to the bottom of the sea in a lair he used to call home. Here, the levels of radiation were high, ideal for a very long nap. The problem, though, was that on the top, it would only be a matter of days before Ghidorah completely wiped out life on the surface, and humanity did not have much time. So in response, a team was dispatched to blow a nuke in front of Godzilla to jumpstart him again.
This is the scene.
After a heroic
I just love this scene.
by Serizawa to detonate the nuke
Shout out to my
in
boy.
front of Godzilla's face, Godzilla was quickly able to recover, and this operation ended up working a little too well. From here on out, Godzilla would have probably breached levels previously unknown to his kind.
He got
Thanks to
height.
modern-day nuclear breakthroughs and his
Look at
ability to harness
all the ships
radiation,
coming in behind him. It's so
Godzilla's body
sick.
nearly reached an equivalent of a nuclear meltdown. We hear this all the time, but what does this actually mean? A nuclear meltdown, by definition, is when the inside of a nuclear reactor gets so hot that it causes the fuel to melt. This can lead to dangerous situations where harmful radiation might be released, or in Godzilla's case, explode and die.
Yeah,
Why did
that
this
would
happen
be-
to the G-Man? Well, let's
if
say his
Godzilla
body anatomy
exploded-
wasn't quite ready to handle this much energy yet.
Godzilla's radiation's reaching critical mass. 6 minutes until he blows.
There was one temporary solution to this, however.
Obviously, he doesn't like to explode. It's got that atomic pulse. I guess that's like releasing some of it.
Biological properties that helped Godzilla regulate this temperature for a longer time.
Oh yeah.
Godzilla to reach near
Thermo G,
levels, but also to cool down during thermonuclear pulses.
Ooh.
Explaining why we see Mothra's wing pattern.
That looks so
time
sick,
Godzilla
man.
Godzilla expels one of these blasts. These not only served as an adequate weapon to finally kill Ghidorah, but also as an important means to cool down Godzilla. Using 3 powerful pulses, Godzilla was finally able to cool down to more manageable levels.
Crazy.
Many confuse this thermonuclear form with a state that Godzilla can.
Bro, look how sick that looks.
No, reaching this state is actually pretty dangerous for the G-Man and those around him. After Serizawa's sacrifice, Godzilla had gained more mass during his recovery, recharged him with energy, and prepared him for his next task, establishing order around the planet. It would be a few years until we see Godzilla's next evolutionary phase, but shortly after King of the Monsters, Godzilla would find time to properly break in his new improved suit, fighting all sorts of titans on both land and sea, and over time
see, another comic, man. I need to read the comics.
Of the graphic novel,
I'm tripping.
Godzilla Dominion, we see Godzilla's upper body strength drastically improve. Capable of throwing
boy's
titans
been
around
lifting.
like
He got in the
ragdolls,
gym a little bit.
swimming
I see you.
faster, and subjugating other kaijus in a short amount of time. Even going as far as seeking a rematch against the great ape that kicked him out of his house a long time ago.
Yeah.
Instead, coming across and barely defeating the titan Tiamat, a stronger
Tiamat.
foe.
I wish that
Come
was a
the
better
events of
fight in
2024
GXK.
During Godzilla vs. Kong, we witnessed Godzilla using his upper body strength on Kong, admittedly facing the strongest ape he's ever faced. In this film, we only see
Kong's
a
a
Godzilla
savage,
who
bro.
was now used to performing more agile maneuvers. That's as far as his development goes at this point in time. The next stages of evolution will unlock a level that no Titan has ever reached before. 3 years later, after Kong and Godzilla parted ways, Godzilla proved
We're gonna
that
see
his fighting
supercharged
skills
G
remained sharp.
before
After easily
evolved,
killing an
obviously.
already charged up Scylla,
I really
Godzilla
like
adopted her
supercharged.
strategy of absorbing radiation by performing mini raids on nuclear power plants and absorbing
He's like, nah, get out of the
radiation
way.
and powering up
I'm
at
doing what I'm
alarming
doing.
speeds. This, however, would bring back a problem that he faced in 2019.
Getting
Remember how his body
too
at
hype.
this point in time is not capable of storing this much energy. He had pretty much reached a ceiling that could not be surpassed without getting
That
once
form
again
right there,
near
bro,
a
with the
nuclear
blue?
meltdown. This irradiated Godzilla would now
So
glow
sick, man.
blue,
It's like
expelling
thermal, but
harmful
blue.
levels of radiation
It's so
and
sick.
heat. In one instance in France, Godzilla once again used a pulse to fend off aircraft that were firing missiles at him. But this time it was more
He had
than
enough,
just a
brother.
pulse. This, ladies and gents, was an EMP. And this comes straight from the official novelization. In the real
EMP?
world,
Okay, I didn't know
nuclear
that.
explosions can also serve as EMPs as well. An EMP is a burst of electromagnetic radiation that can also occur when a nuclear explosion happens near the Earth's surface or at high altitudes. Like 393 feet tall kaiju, for example. These then produce damaging current and voltage surges. New ability unlocked. EMPs
New
are now
ability.
added to the tally of
Like he
abilities
needed
that
another
Godzilla
ability.
can
My boy's a
wield.
savage.
But this makes Godzilla realize he needs to solve another problem: energy capacity. If he was to fight a world-ender kaiju like
He'd have to
Shimo,
be able to
the
hold
G-Man
more energy.
needed to be able to wield more power safely. The answer would be found in the northmost parts of the planet, the Arctic. In the
Here we go.
Monsterverse, the
R.I.P.
Arctic
to
regions
Tiamat,
of
man.
planet Earth serve as a reservoir housing
I wish
the
we could have saw
largest
more of her.
stockpile of energy in planet Earth, courtesy of the constant bombardment of electromagnetic solar winds. This energy would build up here, taking the form
Do you
of
think
violet
Tiamat
or
was
magenta
cheated, or do you
glowing
think it was
matter,
valid?
but
Let me know.
Tiamat settled here first.
Let me
Remember
know.
how Tiamat in Godzilla Dominion lost against the G-Man? Well, after that, she decided to settle here. After Godzilla got a whiff of this, he immediately decided that Tiamat was too dangerous to leave alive at this point, and that this destroyer kaiju needed to die right here. But
And
Godzilla
she did.
was first
She
actually
really
after
did.
this energy. After dispatching Tiamat in a rather brutal fashion,
It was very-
Godzilla settled in the icy
He
caves
did not
that used
care.
to house Tiamat. It was here where the G-Man would go through his fastest and most powerful evolution yet. So, what exactly happened here? Upon waking up, Godzilla would immediately be noticeably different.
Yeah, he
The
got
book mentions
crazy
that
looking.
Godzilla did not
The spikes,
only
the
absorb
dorsal
this new
plates
energy,
looking real
but
spiky.
also went as far as absorbing some of Tiamat's biological makeup, possibly her DNA.
Oh, I didn't
This
know
is
all that.
reflected by Godzilla's more spiky appearance.
It makes sense.
Thagomizer on its tail, elbow spikes, and leaner build, especially around the waist. Godzilla's dorsal plates, again an indicator of his evolutionary stage, were also going to be different. Translucent this time, glowing
So
in the
sick,
violet
man.
magenta coloration as well. But Godzilla's appearance now was not the most important part of this new evolution. It was his new molecular density. Why is this important? Molecular density basically refers
I think
to the
GXK
amount of
does come out on
molecules
Amazon
that take
Prime
up
on the
a specific
13th, I believe.
area. If an area, for example,
In case
is
anybody
full of
wanted to know
atomic
that. I
energy
think you have to
storing
pay for it.
elements,
I'm not
then
sure.
we can store more power.
But you can watch it
Now
from
it's
home.
all
I'm
coming
totally getting it
together.
again.
Godzilla literally evolved to be able to store more radiation, 20 times more.
20
There's a common
times
misconception
is kinda
that this
crazy.
means 20 times more powerful. There's actually a big difference. Godzilla's new evolution made him capable of storing more energy this
Look at
time.
the- bro, just
not
look at the
energy
look
that's
difference.
20 times as
So
powerful.
sick.
But this Godzilla was certainly stronger and capable of better firepower this time. Being a higher molecular density in this case should suggest that Godzilla would have been heavier. At least he should. This is not confirmed. So, what is the end result?
Yeah, I don't
Now
know if he was
Godzilla
heavier.
won't
I mean,
have
he
to
looked
worry
like,
about
well,
going
maybe he
through a
built some muscle
nuclear
mass
meltdown anymore.
somehow.
He can now contain much more energy. And this time he can actually reach a state similar to a supercharged state at will.
Evolved
producing
plus
energy
charged.
and atomic blasts that can cut through millions of tons of pyramid stone
That's
like
kinda
it was
wild.
paper, hurling world-ending kaijus like Shimo for very, very long distances, and most notably, ending an entire world-ending event like an ice age with just one blast.
Shout out to
One may
Godzilla.
say, well, this guy is now
Saved
too
us.
powerful, and this is a valid point. At this level, there are very few things that can stand up to the G-Man that we know of right now.
Very
So
few.
now
My
this
boy
begs
is-
the question, have we seen the end of Godzilla's evolution? The answer, very likely not.
Likely
How else are
not.
these guys gonna keep selling figures and toys? Just kidding. Besides that, the
You know,
evolution
figures
of
are cool,
Godzilla
figures
has
are cool.
revealed the fact that the G-Man is
You think there's
capable of
another
using just
evolution
about
that he could
any
have?
source of energy to better suit his and the planet's needs.
He might have to
Who
have a
knows
better
what other
evolution if
sources
we
of energy
see
there
Destroyer
are around
one
the
day.
planet, and what type of energy can be found in the hollow
Imagine.
Earth. It's possible that if Godzilla doesn't come back to replenish this pink energy after a while, then it may begin to wear off, causing his coloration to slowly but surely return to his classic blue form while maintaining his more scaly and sharp features.
That'd be
His
sick. I like
molecular
that form.
density, however, might actually be here to stay, turning him into a vessel that can contain many types of energy. The number one
Ooh,
trait that
I
allowed
like
the
that
G-Man
theory.
to live this long is his capability to adapt and evolve fast. Having said this,
Yeah, we know he's
haven't
always
seen
gonna
the
adapt.
last of Godzilla's evolution, and he may actually become even stronger against the ultimate threat.
Bro, that's crazy. So the ultimate threat may be meaning Destroyer or something? What kind of form would Godzilla have to take to beat Destroyer? Hopefully we'll see one day. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching with me. I love ya. Goodbye.